out in the bleachers. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Spores kicks and fires. He struck him out looking. It's over. It's over. The Rangers have won the World Series. Ranger fans, you're not dreaming.
The moment Josh Sborz spiked his glove into the ground on November 1st, 2023, marked the conclusion of a Rangers season that by all accounts should not have ended this way. This was the 11th consecutive win on the road during the Rangers' postseason run after not giving Rays, Orioles, Astros, or even Diamondbacks fans a chance to see their own team win a game at their home ballpark. 11 consecutive road wins had not been done in the history of Major League Baseball, and this will probably stand as the longest consecutive postseason road win streak for decades to come. This 2023 postseason miracle run that the Texas Rangers went on was a gut-wrenching, improbable, dominant, glorifying, and downright beautiful representation of one of the most iconic sayings about our nation's pastime.
How can you not be romantic about baseball?
But this video isn't just about the Rangers' impossible run in October. Postseason heroics in any sport are easy and fun to remember because of the stakes, the hype, and naturally the smaller sample size of games. People are going to talk about the 2023 ALCS matchup much more than they will ever talk about the 2 July series against the Astros that sparked so much of the angst between both of these clubs in October. I want to highlight the important moments from the regular season just as much as I want to celebrate the victories that led the Rangers to their first ever title. The Rangers, like every other team, played 162 additional games alongside the 17 they played during the postseason. And while those 17 games are incredibly important and will get their time in this video, first up is the story of how the 2023 Texas Rangers got there, and a brief disclaimer. The budget for this video was $0. I don't have any direct access to the video or images that are going to be used here, and so understand while this is a documentary of sorts, it's not a video made for cinematographers. It's made for the fans of this team, really the fans of baseball, and for the little guy that started cheering for this team back in 2010. So this is for you Rangers fans. This is the story of how the Rangers won their first World Series and how we got to Corey Seager saying,
I just got one thing to say, everybody was wondering what would happen if the Rangers didn't win the World Series. I guess we'll never know.
The Texas Rangers have given up more runs than any other team in baseball over the last 52 years. Doesn't matter how long you've watched this team, generations of Texas baseball fans have watched countless pitchers struggle in Arlington. This was no different in 2022 as the Rangers starting pitchers posted a combined .463 ERA and the second worst walk rate in Major League Baseball. It turns out that committing $500 million on your middle infield in the previous offseason doesn't really fix the most glaring issue about a baseball team. But newly appointed general manager Chris Young knew this as a previous Major League pitcher himself. As one of 2 previous major leaguers who function as the head of baseball operations for a Major League Baseball club, Chris Young's playing career is probably best summed up as being an absolute legend at creating something out of nothing. At 6 foot 10 inches tall, CY had the frame to be a massively overpowering flamethrower and yet could really only top out at 87 miles an hour over his 13-year MLB career. He did win a World Series with the 2015 Kansas City Royals after posting a .306 ERA in 123 innings. The underwhelming aura of the Texas Rangers needed someone incredibly special to turn their woeful team into something worth rooting for, and that's exactly what CY did for the Rangers.
You know who's back? Bruce Bochy's back after last managing with the San Francisco Giants in 2019, introduced yesterday at a news conference.
On October 21st, 2022, Bruce Bochy was announced as the new manager for the Texas Rangers. His task was simple: bring a championship to Texas and right the ship that had been steered waywardly by both Chris Woodward and Jeff Bannister's combined .556 and .638 record over the last 8 seasons. Each of these men did the best with what they were given, but ultimately, each of them lacked the ability to be the adhesive a championship caliber baseball team needs. When the news of Chris Woodward's mid-2022 season firing broke, reporter Evan Grant put it like this: the Rangers seemed to function more as individual parts than a team. A key element of a championship culture, an all-for-one attitude, never really seemed to develop. There was no galvanizing force in the clubhouse despite the commitment of $500 million to free agents Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. Bruce Bochy's resume to the Rangers needed little introduction. His pennant and Manager of the Year award while he was with the Padres will always be overshadowed by his clean sweep of the Texas Rangers in the 2010 World Series. In the entire history of the Texas Rangers and Washington Senators, this team had never been managed by a man who had won it all. Bochy's signing was the prelude to what would be another busy offseason for the Texas Rangers as their 100 $134 million payroll would soon balloon another $50 million. Let's circle back to pitching for a moment. The Rangers deployed 16 different starting pitchers in 2022. Half of them have an ERA over 5 that will be forever logged onto their baseball reference page. The pitching position as a whole for the Rangers generated a negative 7.4 BWAR in 2022, which by my extremely limited knowledge of sabermetrics means they were bad. While there is much more to dive into when it comes to the atrocious 22 Rangers pitching staff, is what happened in the next 2 months that proved that the Rangers front office actually did care about improving their long struggling pitching staff. Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, Martin Perez, and Andrew Heaney all signed deals with the Texas Rangers during the offseason. Another 9 figures in allocated spend meant that the Rangers were closing in towards $1 billion committed in free agency over the last 2 years. With John Gray already locked into the rotation with his 4-year deal signed in the previous year, the Rangers suddenly had a rotation that could easily be argued as a top 3 pitching staff in the American League. This was the first time since 2017 that the Rangers committed an 8-figure salary to more than 1 pitcher on the roster. Except it wasn't just 2 pitchers. The Rangers had just onboarded the franchise's first rotation comprised of 5 contracts well over the $10 million a year mark. For context, 2016's 1-2-3 of Cole Hamels, Yu Darvish, and Derek Holland cost the team $43.3 million that year. deGrom, Eovaldi, and Perez cost nearly $80 million. What caused this team to lose as much as it did in the 2020s was a combination of many things. You can make an argument that it was the leadership, maybe the pitching, or even the offense, but regardless of what history has said about the Rangers, they at least communicated to their fan base, and honestly the whole of Major League Baseball, that they know what's been missing, and that it was finally time to start winning some ball games. When opening day arrived for the Texas Rangers, it meant that their newly acquired phenom of a pitcher would get to take the mound against the National League champion Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies were coming off an offseason in which they landed star shortstop Trey Turner for the next 11 years. In the month leading up to opening day, they also got to watch him hit 5 home runs in 25 plate appearances in the World Baseball Classic. The Phillies' offense was already excellent, but the acquisition of Turner thrusted them into a new echelon while holding the 4th highest payroll in Major League Baseball. The expectation for this series was that the Phillies' stellar offense would be too much for the Rangers pitching staff and that all-star pitchers Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler would hold the Rangers to minimal damage. Those expectations quickly morphed into reality as Jacob deGrom's final opening day line would look like this. Despite touching 101 miles an hour in the first inning, the Phillies put up 5 runs in the first 4 innings on Jacob deGrom. The excitement of the new season was beginning to fade quickly in Arlington, as it seemed that not even acquiring the most talented pitcher on the face of the planet over the last 20 years could solve the multi-generation long pitching curse of this team. The thing about baseball, though, is that both teams get 27 outs, and an MLB season is very, very long. A new season with a new manager, one who particularly is known for his expertise in managing a bullpen, meant that this game was far from over. The Rangers were down 5-0, but the Phillies still needed to record 18 outs before closing the books on the day. In this moment, the Phillies had a 93% chance of winning this game before the bottom of the 4th inning. That win probability, though, would become obsolete in a matter of minutes. This single moment would be the first of many in 2023 for the Texas Rangers, in which their offense transformed into an unstoppable gauntlet for opposing pitchers. An offense that was so good at producing runs, it would eventually score 883 of them during the entire season. Unbeknownst to the fans in Arlington, the Rangers were about to score their first 1% of that total, all in 1 inning.
Young draws the walk, and the Rangers have him loaded.
So it's been single, ground ball out, single, and walk.
This ball ripped over first. That's a base hit. Here comes Seager. Garcia right on his heels. He'll score. Into third, Young. They'll stop him. A 2-run double by Jonah Heim. 2 more in scoring position now as Grossman steps in. Ooh, this ball hit high in the air. Deep out to right field. Does it have enough? It's gone! And Robbie Grossman has tied the game in the 4th inning. Smith, Semien, and Seager, 3rd to 1st. And a little tapper out in front of the plate. Soto. Smith is in there, and the Rangers have their first lead. Oh, he swings and misses, but he goes to the backstop. And coming in to score from 3rd, Semien. The Rangers add a run, and it is 7-5. And the 2-2, Garcia shoots it out to right field. Back on it is Castellanos.
The Rangers put up 9 runs in the 4th and 2 more in the 5th for good measure to seal a highly improbable opening day win by a score of 11-7. The Rangers hadn't scored more than 10 runs at home since August of 2021, and yet gave their fans that privilege on opening day. 2 days later, the Rangers and Phillies would square off yet again in another game highlighted by 2 phenomenal pitchers in Nathan Eovaldi and Zach Wheeler. Only this time, the Phillies never even had a real shot. Despite a narrow 4-3 lead going to the 5th inning, the Rangers would go on to score 12 more unanswered runs and win 16-3 against what many believe to be one of the best teams in the National League. 27 runs scored by the Rangers made them the 7th team in the last 124 years to score 10 or more runs in their first 2 games. It also meant that in just 2 games, the Rangers put up 12.1% of their entire 2020 season run total. By April 10th, the Rangers were first place in the AL West. They had the 6th best team ERA and the 5th most runs scored in Major League Baseball. This team was a moonshot away from the 2-8 start the Rangers had through their first 10 games in 2022. But despite firing on all cylinders, this team would soon face its first real adversary 2 weeks after opening day, Corey Seager's hamstring. On the morning of April 12th, Corey Seager was batting .359 with a .469 on-base percentage and an OPS over 1,000. It's the numbers you would expect after committing $325 million to one of the best power-hitting shortstops in the history of baseball. Despite Corey being Corey to start the young 2023 season, Seager technically did not have the best slash line on the team. That surprisingly belonged to Travis Jankowski, who was slashing at the time .571, .667, and .857, albeit with a minimal sample size of 9 plate appearances. Now, Jankowski was a not-so-notable add during Chris Young's first offseason, and was primarily on the roster as a pinch runner and defensive replacement in the outfield. And we're talking like a .630 career OPS level defensive replacement. For some reason, those 9 plate appearances Jankowski had through the beginning of April were enough for Bruce Bochy to consider him as a viable starter in the lineup throughout the remainder of the season. But I've got to be honest with myself, it would be unfair to imply that this small sample size was the only reason Jankowski saw the most playing time in his career since 2018. It's because that same morning, Corey Seager would begin a 32-game hiatus on the IL with a hamstring injury. It was an absolutely brutal blow to the momentum this team had had to start the year, especially with Mitch Garver and his .943 OPS being sent to the IL just 2 days prior. Losing 2 of your top 3 hitters to start the year is about as much of a momentum stopper as you could imagine. It's incredibly fascinating to see what this equivalent looks like around the league with other teams. That would have been Duvall and Devers for the Red Sox, Xander Bogaerts and Juan Soto for the Padres, and that list goes on and on. But over the first 2 weeks of Seager's absence from the lineup, the Rangers still managed to go .500 with a 7-7 record and bring their overall record to 14-11. They were tied for first in the AL West, and a huge part of this resilient stretch through April is largely in part to 6 guys in the Rangers offense: Marcus Semien, Adolis Garcia, Jonah Heim, Josh Young, Ezekiel Duran, and good old Travis Jankowski, who all posted OPS marks over 800. Now, you could make a more subjective case that the Rangers City Connect jersey debut maybe played a small part in keeping Rangers fan spirits higher than normal, given the situation the team was in. And while they did lose their first game sporting the now infamous Peagle on their chest, that specific weekend series against the A's will have more than just some City Connect jersey history associated with it.
Are you going to throw it to the backstop?
Whoa, Garcia gets into one. That's going to go a long way. Gone! Another deep blast and another home run by Garcia, a 2-run shot. And he hits this ball well. Jeez. Deep out to left field. Doesn't have enough. Gone! Third of the night!
On the night of April 22nd, Adolis Garcia's box score would tally 16 total bases, 8 RBIs, and 3 home runs. It was the most impressive single offensive performance for the Rangers since Josh Hamilton hit 4 home runs at Camden Yards, and it marked another key moment in which the Rangers fans had a little more hope for what this team could accomplish as the season progressed. That night was the moment El Bombi became a superstar for the 2023 Rangers. In 79 plate appearances to that point, Adolis was batting .206 with a .642 OPS. After this game was over, both of those stats skyrocketed to .260 and .877. A 235-point swing in OPS in one game with that many plate appearances had never happened before in Major League history. This amount of offense in one evening was a massive spark to the team, and from that point forward, Garcia was locked in at the plate and as a fan favorite on the team. His average in OPS didn't even come close to the marks he had just one day before he pummeled the Oakland Athletics' helpless pitching staff. But like I said before, Baseball has a very, very long season. Sometimes during these long seasons, things can abruptly change. You never expect one of your key players to get injured, but you also have to understand that injuries are inevitable. And in some rare instances, the inevitable can hurt the most when it's shrouded in expectations. On April 28th, the magic of the Peagle just 1 week prior would fade as Jacob deGrom left his start against the Yankees with an apparent elbow injury. Dane Dunning would replace him and go on to win the game, as he did so almost identically back on April 17th. And yes, this wasn't the first time that this happened. Dunning played hero 11 days prior in an almost identical situation. Let's break this down a little bit. Dunning coming into pitch against the Royals on the 17th was quite peculiar because deGrom had just thrown 4 no-hit innings on 58 pitches. When the Rangers reported deGrom's exit was just precautionary for his wrist, there was a moderate sigh of relief. An early exit from a game in which he had not only mowed through the Royals lineup, but also had only pitched about 20 innings to this point in the season was alarming. So what did deGrom do in his next start? He went 6 innings, struck out 11, and had his fastball top out at 101 miles an hour. Whether or not you've watched deGrom pitch before, you need to understand something very specific about him. He is one of the fastest sliders for a starting pitcher in the history of baseball. deGrom's average slider sits around 92 to 93 miles an hour and consistently has about 2 feet of vertical break. As impossible as this specific pitch is to see and to hit, few people saw it more in 2023 than Jonah Heim. If you were to ask me, he was the first person outside of deGrom to know something serious was up on the 28th. This graph shows you the speed and type of pitch deGrom threw in this game, and these dots show his final 2 pitches of 2023. While it may not seem like much, that kind of velocity drop for an elite pitcher is almost always associated with some type of injury. The Rangers didn't beat around the bush this time, and the very next morning, deGrom was placed on the 15-day injured list with forearm tightness. And despite trying to prolong the inevitable, deGrom underwent his second career Tommy John surgery in early June. Now, one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever been told is that the gap between expectations and reality is always disappointment. I can't begin to express how true that felt to me and to Rangers fans across the world in this exact moment. deGrom was the primary offseason acquisition that was supposed to fix all of our pitching failures, dating all the way back to David Clyde's disastrous 1973 season. The expectation that the Rangers' 2023 pitching rotation was going to be one of the best in the American League, if not all of baseball, was very real. But reality is swift, and in moments like these, where the idea of control is no longer tangible, it can be incredibly difficult to know what to do. For the Texas Rangers, the answer to this nearly devastating blow and acceptance of this new reality took the form of one man, and that man is Nathan freaking Eovaldi.